Salesforce Hubs. Welcome back to Codeforce Chronicles. My name is Shruti, your Salesforce coach and consultant. I have an experience of about 5.5 years in the industry, that is Salesforce. Quoting this as a proof and evidence, I started my career in 2019 as a developer, and now I've grown as a YouTuber along with the coach, running a coaching center, that is Codeforce Chronicles. Prior to that, I worked as a assistant project manager and as part of a testing team where I had to prove myself as a confidence in two companies. My life was in place when I started to focus my thought and my career as a developer, now as a coach. When it comes to the context which I'm trying to provide is, the minute you decide your life is in place with the context. I wanted to become a Salesforce architect, now I'm a coach. So it depends on the terminologies that we prefer our existence as a proof and evidence that we are in place with our life. In today's session, day 3 of our Apex Learning Series, we are diving into the core of the decision making in code, that is conditional statements and loops. When it comes to the conditional statements, we use, that is if, else, and then we can code this as a provision that we provide in the industrial formulae, that we have to provide a logic. After we use if, else and the logic, then we can use a statement to conclude, that is system.debug. When we speak about the reference, that is if, and with the condition, and then the else statement only if the condition is in place with the else statement, and then the logic should provide the proof and substantial providence. Now when it comes to the loops that we have, that is for each loop and the inherited property that we use as for loop as a iteration, we call it as for iterative loop or for each loop when it comes to the inheritance, where we provide a statement, that is the logic, and the quoted narration as a proof or evidence that we have chosen a medium where we can quote our logic as a result. These are now, after we finish performing the activities, either using the for loop or for each loop inside the if statements, then we have to conclude the logic with if and for as a provision and as a best practice. For the formulated evidence, where we understand that our vertebral is in place with the context, that is A. And in case you have any doubts, you can post it in the comment section below. And this is an important topic because of one reason. We have our statements in place, and in case you are preparing for an exam, that is platform developer 1 exam, then we have to note this as a statement where you can understand the prodigy, that is the data management after we provide the data. Now A and B are part of the service cloud inheritance or sales cloud, preferably as a context in the medium account to opportunity as a context where we have to add the account record as a statement after we process the data using the conditional loop, that is if loop. If condition statement, after we create the record in the system, that is the formulated evidence as a backend theory, where we write the conditional statement as if or for based on the theoretical evidence, where I choose for each loop for the iteration, and then I quote a condition using if, and the statement should be clear that we have used if else statements, so that the condition is completed after we update the revenue of the opportunity in place with the formulated evidence, which I will be helping you with, that is the result. So after we update the revenue, the result should be in place with a statement that the revenue is and we have to quote this as if statement if the revenue is greater than 50 bucks or 1 lakh. We can keep that 50,000 for now. Then the revenue billing system will be in place with the account only if we add the account, that is the account which is associated with the opportunity, as a placement. Now once the condition gets fulfilled, the for loop is in place, and then we get the result as the account is updated with the revenue in place, and the account should be in place with the statement which I am providing, that the source or the rating based on whatever we have the fields for. Rating can be a custom field. When it comes to the source field, we have to update the source as purchase list. Okay. Now, after you create this logic and you start running the code, the result will be A is greater than B, which is equal to the data provided by the system, that is the index that is in place with the formulated evidence. Okay, I hope you've understood this concept now. Let's think about our days with our sessions. If you have ever wondered how Apex decides what to do when and for how many records, this session will make it crystal clear. Let's take a real world example from Salesforce. Imagine we are fetching account records and need to display them differently based on their industry. Okay, let's break the chain of reactions now. So first, and you have to conclude the logic. First we have to use, or we will use if else statement. Okay, clear? And the conditions to check if the logic is in place. That is the business logic, and then we provide for loops to iterate the accounts. For iteration through the records. Okay. Simple, clean and industry level logic. Okay, exactly how a Salesforce developer should think. Now when it comes to the for loop, it is iteration which we follow, but I made it clear to you that this is iteration loop which we follow, that is the simple logic which we imbibe, and when it comes to for each loop, it is called as for iterative inheritance loop. where we keep quoting the examples until the condition is met with the logic. Now, alright, let's jump into our developer console or VS Code. Now, let's create our Apex class with the name account logic demo. Now let's type in the first syllable that we use, public, static, void, and I want you to refer to our first session to understand the integral part of our course, and the second session where I have provided the statements related to the access modifiers. We call them access modifiers because of a protocol that we follow. The modifiers can place the statements according to the context. Now I will call this method as accounts, filter accounts. Let's head towards our first step. Step 1. Very active accounts. With non-null, and this is an important question which you will be in place with when it comes to interview, especially Accenture. Non-null industries. Okay. Now when we speak about the inheritance, when a null factor is provided with the active accounts, we should understand null means it's not inhabited in the theory. When we speak about the active and inactive accounts, we should understand that the logic is in place with the activation of the rules. Now when it comes to the course of mine, that is Codeforce Chronicles, where I am providing the session as a self-paced course, which is for rupees 5,000. I want you to enroll after you complete your logic with the vertebral, that is Apex. And in case you are happy with my sessions on YouTube, I want you to comment in the comment section below, so that I can provide the details according to the terminologies that you use. Now when it comes to the admin course, which is for 5,000, you can place your statements after you decide your future with me. Now when it comes to the advanced program which I have created, 10-day bootcamp, where the price can be quoted as 5,000 again. The reason is the integral part of the course will be in place depending on your vertebral. Now I am providing a discount for Diwali offer, as a Diwali offer and a package, which is rupees 2,500 for the self-paced course, and I am receiving feedback for live sessions as well. I had to stop the conducting the live sessions for the reason my priority was my YouTube channel, and my batches were in place according to their priority. Now coming to the new batch which I wanted to place your statements, and in case you want me to start a new batch from next month, I wanted to place it as a comment in the comment section, so that I can be part of your life. If you want me to be your mentor for the next 2 years, you can create a statement for the self-paced course, where I am providing 1 year of support, and the study year will be quoted in the extension, and the period is in place with the extra forbearance that you need to pay, that is 2,000 rupees, only the extension is in place with all the feedback that I receive from you and from the assignments that you complete. Okay. Now, when it comes to the active accounts with null industry as a quoted narration, I want you to focus on the vertebral, that is for statements. I hope you have understood the for loop which I am conducting as a forbearance, where for each loop is a iterative loop, and for loop where we put it as an iteration is a medium through which we call it as for loop with a inheritance. So inheritance and for each loop with iteration. Okay, the inheritance and iteration should be in place in your thought and your terminologies when you face the interview. If it is Capgemini, I am clear that the terminology should be in place with the questions that they ask. When it comes to Accenture, you should place your statements according to the logic which they provide. Okay. And when it comes to my course, I am clear that the placements which are quoted everywhere is not in place with my thought and my coaching center. The reason is the review that you receive from the company should be clear that you are a part of my life, but in case I have referred you, then my name wouldn't be quoted as a referral. The reason is I am not part of their circumference, that is their employment. Now, after we use the for loop, we should understand that the for loop will be in place with our thoughts, that is, and I am quoting this again as a formulated evidence, and in case I place this as a statement, okay, that is using a SOQL query in a for loop, then we should understand that the logic will be in place only if we quote it as a statement. Now, I am quoting this as a providence to you and as a statement to the factor that we have to place a statement in, and I can provide this as a forbearance to your theory that we are using a statement which is not part of the curriculum, but in case I explain this as a providence to you, and I know this is a theory where you have to quote yourself as a proof, I am quoting the variable as list, okay, and account. Now I want you to conduct a research on list as a formulated evidence, okay, where I am placing the collection variable as list and account with the name account list. Okay. Now, when we provide a SOQL query, we should understand that the forbearance, that is the inheritance, is select. Okay, that is the SOQL query. And after we start typing the name of the field, that is ID name, based on the mandatory field along with the fields that you want to place your statement with. And I quote this as a providence to our course, that if you have understood the statement, then you can complete your theory that after we provide a statement that is from account, you have to think about the where condition. Okay, as we place where in the forbearance, then industry should be in place with the theoretical formulae where industry should not be equal to null. Okay, so in case you place this substantial proof list, then we have to limit the forbearance to 10 only if we feel that the null pointer value exception will be in place with the forbearance, that is the account list, as a formulated evidence in the for loop. Now, when we are thinking about our logic, where I have provided the collection variable as list account, where the list of account will be in place only if the quoted example is true, that the for loop is the medium through which we can provide our statements, then the if condition is in place with account, and we have to provide the industry as a field name, or the field where we can quote this as an example. And if it is, now we have an operator, where we can provide it as an equal to operator. And now I'll explain this concept of equal to operators now. When we are quoting our statements as equal to operator, equal to operator, then we have to provide the statement as both the formulae. Here it is industry is equal to finance, for example. Then industry is in place with finance as a medium. Now when we speak about the formula, A equal to B means B is the value which has to be a inherited property, okay, as a statement in the formula, that is A is now replaced by B. When we think about the reality, B is a context in the evidence, that is constant variable. Now, when we talk about variables, we should understand that we have static and constant variables. I've explained the concept of constant variables. When it comes to static variables, it is clear in this formula that the static variable is equal to the formulated evidence, where we see that the method is void. The minute we quote a method as void, the static variables are in place. Now we have not placed our statements anywhere other than the account formulated forbearance. After we start placing the logic, we realize that the constant variable is in place with the variables which are associated with the logic. So when it comes to static variable, the acceptance should be in the form of a quoted circumstance, either as a statement of variable where we quote account with the access modifiers, for example public, and we have to place it as static, account, and the name of the account ACC. Okay, as a forbearance in the context that we have placed account as a reference to the level of the endurance. Now when we are in place with our session and the context which I'm providing, we should understand the logic. Now I'm placing the forbearance as a theory where we understand that the declaration that we are providing is a stored variable, where we understand that the variable is ACC and it is static because of the static method which we use the access modifier public. Okay. Now when we speak about the reference that we are quoting, I hope you understood the equal to operator. And in case you have understood list as a modifier in the context which I am providing, which is a collection series, that is the collection variables that we provide, I want you to understand that the theory will be in place only after I start the session on collection variables. Now we will provide the industrious finance only if it is available under the circumference that we choose, that is account. And I have a logic which you have to understand with me, so that we place our statements as a proof that we have quoted the examples, but in case we miss the logic, that is the integrity part of the conference, we should understand that the field name is not in place with the variable. Quoting this as a reference to you, that we have to understand whether the pick list value is in place with the value that we are providing in the record, is because we have to perform the statements now with reference to the template that we have understood the code, that is the system, the debug statement. The system.debug statements are statements where we provide some programs, and in case we print the values, then it is clear that the reference is made according to the preferences of ours. Now I'll quote this as a finance account, okay, if it is equal to the terminology that we use. And in case you confuse between the statements, that is the first statement, that is public static void, and then the debug statements, I want you to refer to our previous video, that is our previous session. Now after this, we have to concatenate the properties with ACC dot name as a formula. Now why would we print ACC dot name when the account is clear with the terminology that I am in place with the reference? The reason is we should understand that account name is in place with the output, that is finance, after we put this as a medium, that the reference is made through a variable in the for loop, that is ACC, and the name can be inherited only if the account is reaching the details of the industry, and then it is quoted as name only if we want the output to be placed as a statement to us. Now after we quote this as a proof, that is if statement, we have to use else statement to provide a condition where we can understand if, and we can quote this as a proof in the same line itself if you want to. It depends on your way of handling the details of the field or the variant. Then we can place acc.industry as a proof that it is equal to integration. So in case this condition is satisfied, we wouldn't enter this loop. Now when we start providing our proofs to the industry, that is our place where we quote ourselves as a managerial formulated evidence, that is our client call, or the meet that we quoted as a client meet. In the industry, that is our forbearance, either the phase that I quoted as VAT or the inheritance. Then the statement should be clear with our inclusive measure, that we have provided a if-else statement, and the else statement is in place as education. Now the print statement should be in place with the education only if the system, the debug, provides the result. Now I'll copy this formulae and I'll provide it as education, okay, with the same thought. Okay. Now after I provide this as a medium, you should understand the logic which I've provided as a proof that the next half of the industrial formulated evidence, that is if else, if, and then again an end statement to conclude this theory, where the client is clear that you want to understand the logistic of the formulated evidence. Will provide my statement as debug only if I am convinced that the evidence is clear with the logic. Now I will quote this as a medium through which we can provide our formulae, that is our system, other industry. As a medium and reference to our formulated evidence, then we should end this logic only if we understand that the variant is in place with the dynamics of our code. Now I want you to understand that after we place our statement for if, and we understand that the formula is in place only if we place the forbearance, and now that the forbearance is in place with the exception that we are heading towards, we should understand that the variant is in place, that is for. I want you to understand that the error is simple to resolve, but we have to place our syntax as a property only if it is accepted by the conditional statement. Now when we start placing the statements, we should understand that the reciprocal that we receive should be in place with our terminologies. Now when we are placing our reference, okay, here we understand that the account is in place with the evidence that the ID, not the null formulae that we use, is in place with the formulated evidence, that is the forbearance. The reason I am asking you to put this as a proof and evidence is, the day I started my journey as a coach, I realized that my students are not in place with the conditional formulae, that is the field that has to be placed as a formulated evidence. Only if we understand that the logic is in help you to resolve this issue only if you believe that the statement that we are in place with, that is the formulated evidence, then we have to understand that our logic is in place only because of a conditional statement that we have provided. Now, the minute we start quoting our references as an evidence, then we should understand that the minute we place our circumstantial proof, we should enhance our commitment to this as a formulae. Now, it should be prior to the notice that we receive that the integral part of our conference should be in place with our statements. That is, here we have to quote the statements that we want, that is integer finance count. Is equal to 0. Next. And this is a statement we are providing so that the reference that we are providing towards our mechanism, that is the integral part of our conference, where I am placing integer education count as 0 and integer other count. So we should understand the providence that we are in place with, that our finance should be in place with the statement which we are quoting as a proof that the debug statement should be in place with the formulated evidence, that is finance count plus plus. Instead of using the for inheritance property that I wanted to provide, I am using the for each loop because of the evidence that we have, that is the name to be quoted as a medium through which we can provide our forbearance. Now, when it comes to other count, it should be clear, it should be after the formulated evidence that we provide, that is the else statement. Okay, so after we complete the education part of the industrial value, we have to understand that we are concluding the else part of the formulae. Okay, that is this other count as a evidence, and now you have to term it as plus plus only if you have faith in my forbearance. Now that is the theory that I am going to explain. After we inherit the property as a quoted formulae, we have to end the forbearance here. Okay, after we end the forbearance, it should be quoted as a inheritance, and the system.debug statement after the conclusion is made should be part of the conference only if the final statements are in place with the debug statements. of mine. Now I code this as a forbearance where I see that the debug statement shouldn't be in place. Now this is a common mistake that we make. So we want the priority to be placed as statements, but only if the formulae is in place. Now after we conclude this statement, that is after the finance is in place, and you provide a forbearance where we understand that the if condition is not in place with the else if, only if the syntax is proven as a formulated evidence, and as a proof we have conducted a theory, then the system.debug should be in place with our statement, that is the first statement that I want you to place yourself with, that is the finance account. Or accounts plus, or the inheritance that we quote as a medium through which we can conclude our theories, that is forbearance in the formulated evidence, and now we can place our concatenation statement as, and I want you to comment in the comment section below, where I see your with me when it comes to the substantial evidence that I've provided. That is, the system.debug statements will be in place only if we provide the providence towards our course. Okay. Now the second providence that I'm going to provide is education accounts. Okay, education. Third, and we have to be clear with our debug statements, that the system.debug statements should be in place with the narration. Now third, and the forbearance should be the quoted conference where we have placed our statements, and it is other accounts, and the forbearance is other count plus. Now we have to start analyzing our mistakes. Okay, so now first we understood that the industry is in place with the formulae. Okay, that is in place with the industrial terminology. Okay, so here we understood that the logic, that is public static void, is in place, and then we started providing the integer value to the conference. Now let us understand the forbearance which we are facing, and that is the syntax errors. We quote this as a syntax error only if the second filter condition is in place with the formulae. Now when we speak about our method and the formulated evidence, where we are receiving an error which is in place with our statements, then we have to provide it as a method inside a body or must have a body error. Now I'm going to place you as a statement and as a proof that this error is in place with the second line, and it should be a formulated evidence where we can quote our signature as a process. Now when we are in place with the terminologies that we use, and I see that the placement is safe, and I can quote this as an error only if the theoretical evidence is a method which I am placing myself into. Now let's start inheriting the braces. Now the first brace is in place, the second brace is in place, so we have to remove a brace to understand the logic now. So now we have to understand that the logic is in place, but we are receiving the error because of a reason which I am thinking as a proof and evidence which can be provided as a medium. Now I can quote this as a formulae only if the syntax is in place with the formulated evidence. Now this method that I'm quoting should end at the place which I want it to end. Okay? So now let's end the ending here. Now when we try to understand this logic, okay, I can place my statements only if the logic is the evidence. A mistake which you make where you try to remove void. Okay, so when we I hope you're understanding the theory which I'm trying to convey to you, where I see that we remove the braces according to our thought, and later when we try to place the braces, okay, and this is a common error which we face. Public understand the logic now. Logic behind this vertebral. That it is a now you have to understand that if you place an if statement, it should be clear that we have provided the braces to conclude the methods. Okay. Now we should understand that the a sequence of errors that we are finding is part of our list, but not in the inhabited format, where I see that the vertical can be in place. And I understand that the mandatory fields are important, where I have to remove one formulae, okay, and later you'll realize after the sequence that method and the so this ends here. So the issue is with the braces. Okay. Now when we conclude a else statement, we should understand that the conclusions that we make is in place with the terminologies that we use. Okay, so now I'm helping you to understand that the context that we have provided is in place as a formulae and not the industrial placement. Now after we start quoting the references, we will realize that our preference is with the expressions. Now it is easy to understand the code only if we provide the statements. Now the debug statements should be in place with the inheritance that we provide, and as a formulae we can understand that the code is in place with the errors, but when we start formulating the evidence, we should understand that the periodic inheritance should be in place as a formulae and not with the extensions that we provide. So when you are in place with the evidence, you should understand that the terminologies that we are quoting, okay, should be with the inheritance that we provide. Now, after I conclude the formulae, we will understand that the quoted mechanism, that is the evidence that I am providing as else statement, is in place, and in case you want it to be quoted as a medium, then statements are a proof that we have concluded the unexpected token errors. Now, the reason is, the minute we start analyzing the mistakes of ours, then we realize that our existence are in place with the root cause analysis which we have to conclude. Now, once we start placing the forte of ours, that is the debug statements, we will realize that the accounts are in place with the wrong statements, where we were clear that after each statement we have to provide a providence, and not after the inherited formulae, only if we believe that our context is in place. Now, when it comes to this theory which I had written, and I want you to understand that when we are conducting our reference, we have to limit the formulae either as a token or as a, and I want you to quote it as a proof in the context. Now, after we start placing our for loop as an inheritance with the account list as a forbearance, and if account is in place with industry, where we see finance as our first providence, we can quote a system.debug statement instead of the iteration loop which I thought of placing myself with. Now, the system.debug statement can be in place with the existence now. Okay, so we have cleared our forbearance as a reference, that our system.debug will provide statements, will provide our proofs now. Okay, So you understood the context which we had to place ourselves. But the reason is these are the common mistakes that you make. Okay. Now we can remove this whole iteration part of this conference. Okay. So when you are part of a interview, there are mistakes that you make, and in case it is quoted as a mistake, then you have to understand that there's a way to handle the mistake also. So when you're providing your inheritance as a formulae, you should understand that the context is beyond our thinking. Okay. So here we can provide our providence as the theory that we believe. Okay. So after we finish quoting ourselves as part of the forbearance. Now after we understand the theories behind the formulas, we should understand that the syntax should be in place with the, and I'm asking this again so that you understand that the syntax that we place as a medium should be in place with the debug statement and the else condition should take it forward. And after we place the next debug statement as a proof, there should be another formula where we can use the debug statements. Now in case you have understood the concept in theory and in the statements that we provide, as a proof that I have made you realize that Gardner limits are the vertebral of the institute, that is the industry that we follow, as a medium, that there should be an option that we provide to the customers. It is an easy way to understand that the names that we provide is a vertebral to our culinary, that is our thoughts, that we can't complete our statements without our evidence. Understood? So the session was meant to understand our vertebral, that is our conditional statements, where I placed my formulated evidence to you. Now we had to discuss the two for loops as well, where I quoted this as an example by using the plus plus methodology. Now when it comes to the methodology, that is the plus plus methodology, I can quote this as a vertebral to you, that when we use plus plus, it is equivalent to equal equal. So when we start narrating the for iteration loop, for inheritance loop, where we have to put I and then the statements with the vertebral, and I want you to conduct a research on the condition, the logic or the condition with the statements, where I understand that the vertebral is I is greater than or equal to 5, and then the logic, I is greater than equal to 5, I is equal to 5, I plus plus. Okay, so this is the inheritance loop that we follow. But when we write the logic, that is I and I want everybody to quote this as a narration in the comment section, so that we understand that the vertebral is in place with the context, that is a medium through which we can quote our narrations. Then I can help you to understand the as a prefix. Now when we are talking about the prefix, that is uh, the logic that we want our references to be in place with. Then I can code this as a reference that we have to add a vertebral here, that is the formula. Okay, so now the minute we code this as a mistake, that we have used a wrong formula where I want the logic to be in place as a formulated reference, we understood that it depends on the logic that we use. Now I have a theory which you have to conduct. In case you're placing this as a for loop where I understood that the iteration was plus plus with the counterpart of the 40 which I wanted you to place yourself with, that is either the counter plus plus variables with the vertebral, then I want you to understand that the executive anonymous window is in place with our terminologies. Now our inheritance comes into 40 as a loop concept only if we understand the loops are in place with our vertebral. Now when we start understanding the terminologies of the context, and I'm waiting for you to respond if you have completed writing the code, so that the session is useful for all the periodic measures that we are placing ourselves with. Then I can help you to understand the core part of this context before I execute this portion of the code, that is the system.debug statements along with the methods and the terminology, so that the output is clear with your 40. For loops helps us to iterate. For loop helps us iterate through records dynamically, a core apex concept. If, else, if, and else handle conditional branching, making logic acceptable. Each system.debug acts as your output console, showing how your logic behaves at runtime. Now let's talk about the best practices, because clean logic matters more than just working code. Now before I step into the logic part of the best practice, but I have to explain the code inheritance. Now let's execute this in the window. And here are the details of the account. Now let's talk about the best practices, because we want the logic to be inherited by the properties of ours, where I see use selective SOQL queries. SOQL queries. SOQL queries always apply filters like where industry is not equal to none and use limit. Okay, now when it comes to the logic which I have applied here, I have quoted as 10 accounts, and here we see that the logic is in place with how many accounts? 10. Okay, so 10 accounts are in place with all the statistics that we have provided. If you want to understand whether we are in place with our for reference, then we have to run the execute topology and find out whether the number of accounts that we are quoting is in place with the size. See here. So we understand that the theory that we have counted is in place. Now when it comes to the SOQL query, and we understand that the select statement is in place with our limitation, and as a quoted conference we can run this only if we believe that our logistic is in place. Now when we try to run this, I want to understand why the logic that we provide is not that we provide, and I understand that the select statement is in place, but when we run the query, we have to try to understand the formulas, and this is an error that we make, that is a typing error. Now the reason this S object is not in place, you can code this as a medium where select ID name industry from account will be in place only if we provide the syntax incomplete. Okay, so we have to provide the syntax. So when we write this as a limitation, okay, and as a proof where industry is not equal to null is in place, but when we are quoting null should be within the limit. Okay, when we start using the query editor, we realize that our life is not in place. Now again, I want you to understand why a field which is quoted here, okay, is not in place with the context, that is the query editor is not in place with the formulae where the best practices you have to use the measure that we use, that is the context. I want you to run the code according to your thought, where I've explained the entire logic. Where I'm trying to help you to understand whether it's a logic which I am placing myself with as an error, or any other formulae where we have to practice our theory. Again, run the code in your mind. I want you to write it in the comment section below. Give it 2 minutes, then you'll realize that we are heading towards our end of the session, where I want the formulae to be in place. There are minor errors that we provide ourselves with as a providence, and now we should understand, while making an error or quoting it as a industrial formulae, and I wanted you to be smart when it comes to the minor errors that we perform. It is easy to understand that the object is in place, okay, but when we quote it as a reference to the context, that we are part of the formulated evidence, we should understand that the minor error is I want you to understand with the preference that the industry shouldn't be null. The reason I'm quoting this as an example is where we are trying to understand whether the accounts are in place, where it's showing a S object error. So the reason I'm asking you to understand that that we can't run a evidence, okay, without using the API tool as a mechanism. Okay, understood, right? So when we quote these references, we should understand that the logic is in place. Okay, and when we use the checkbox API editing as a formulae, we should understand that when we edit the accounts, okay, it should be in place with the tools that we provide. And it is showing this error because the logic part of the code, that is the medium through which we are quoting it as limit is equal to 10, is not supported as an S object type because of the field which is quoted throughout, that is industry. Okay, so avoid using the checkbox while use tooling API when we are part of the surveillance that we are conducting. Okay, understood, right? So that is the reason why the SOQL query shouldn't be used inside a null pointer error, that is the prodigy that we use. Now, after we quote our circumstantial proofs, I want you to make a note of the proofs that I am providing as best practices, and it should be heard to you that we are in place with our sessions, and the sessions are heading towards the other half of our inheritance, where we have to provide our statements as avoid SOQL inside loops as the second methodology. Now, use selective SOQL is the first one. Second one is in place with the first statement, that avoid SOQL inside loops. So you have to query the inheritance, that is the process as a forbearance only once. Okay, query once and process many. Okay, so you should avoid using the SOQL inside the loops. So I've provided all the circumference to you, that is the mistakes that we make, and now we are in place with the statements. Keep your logic, and this is the third statement which is quoted throughout our journey. It should have meaningful logic. Meaningful variable names, that is the logic, so that when we read the names, it should be clear to us, right? ACC means count. It's a common terminology that we use. Okay, ACC means it's account, and when we are typing the variables, we should be clear that account is in place with the logic. Are simple, okay, so that the logic is in place with the testing terminologies. Now, the fourth best practice is test in small inferences, that is batches, using the limit condition. Limit 10, for example, as a proof which helps us to validate the output before heading towards the scaling. That is the confidence. We call it as a UAT testing, okay, which we focus on unit or the forbearance testing, that is the sanity testing. Now, if you want to count many accounts which belong to the industry, and if you have followed the logic of ours, we try to inherit the properties. Now let's focus on the other half of this forte, that is the for each logic only if you feel that the logic will be in place with the circumference. Now We tried this, but we will try it with our circumference, that is the industry which we want to place ourselves with. It is easy now. Okay. Now we will place the circumference in the logic, but it should be clear to you that we are using the integer part of the conference. Okay. Integer financial counter. Okay, that is equal to count, that is equal to 0, and integer education count. Okay, only two variants which we will place ourselves with. Okay, now the variant that we provide can be in place only if we use the logic according to our forbearance. Okay, now let's try this. If it works, then you will understand that the formulas that we use is in place only if we educate ourselves. Okay, now after we provide the if condition, and if we want the conditions to be in place as a providence, then we can provide the plus plus terminology that we tried to imbibe. Now I wanted you to be prepared for the education count as a review. The reason is, after we quote this as a conference and we understand that the conference is in place only after we quote it as an example, then we have to infer the providence as a vertebral to the context. Okay, now here we have to place our statements according to the references only if we, and I'm quoting this as a proof that the if condition will be in place with else only if the formulated evidence is in place with the statements. Okay, now we have to understand the formulae. Now I have placed the understanding to you that we have to understand the accounts that we are placing ourselves with. Okay, the reason is we want the account which is in place with the formulae as a evidence, and if we provide the substantial evidence as another formulae, then the quoted evidence will be education plus plus. Okay, now the reason I'm quoting these statements as proofs in the terminologies that we use is we have to indent the code to understand the providence. So fixed indentation will help us to understand the logistic of the queries. Okay, so now after we indent the properties according to the vertebral, we'll understand the meaning of the context that we are providing. Okay, now so we have formulated the proofs. Again I fixed the indentation so that we are clear with the concepts. Okay, now while executing this code that we have written, we have to understand this logic. This helps us understand loop-based counters, a common interview and logic pattern. Okay, so when will we use this as a proof? and everything. When where we have understood that the logistic is in place, we have to quote this as a proof only if we are in place with the number of accounts. Okay, so I have not placed the education. Here it is education. Not finance. So we have to understand that we want to read the logic as a counter only if we want to narrate the number of accounts as a providence. Okay, and we have to close all the windows before you conduct the surveillance on your logistics. Okay, see here it's clear, education account. Okay, the accounts that we quote in the real world use cases, and I want you to place this as a statement in your preferences, and I hope I have cleared all your doubts. As a logistic and a preference in our theory, you have to understand that in Service Cloud or Sales Cloud, these conditions power automation. That is, in Sales and Service Cloud, we place our circumference as conditions power automation. Okay, now whether a case should escalate, a lead should convert, or account needs priority handling can be handled when the logic is greater than or equal to in the mediocre terminologies. But in real projects, apex logics like this complements flows and process builder. Here we can place the loop statements as a proof, that is the for loop statements, that it can be iterated according to the processes. In case you want to use flows and process builder as a providence, then Apex gives us that extra layer of control and performance. Okay, so that's your day 3, conditional statements and loops made simple yet scalable. Try customizing this logic with your own fields, maybe type or rating, and share your output in the comments below. Do not forget to like, share and subscribe to Codeforce Chronicles, because every logic we learn together takes us one step closer to becoming true Salesforce architects. Okay, thank you.